Let's pick up right where we left off in the previous lecture and talk some more about reducing the number of HTTP requests with which a browser must contend, what HTTP requests are, and why reducing them to as small a number as possible is foundational to the WordPress web performance architecture you will learn how to implement in future course lectures. An HTTP request, so what is that? Well, whenever a web browser fetches a file from a web server, a page, a post, a picture, our combined CSS file from the last lecture, etc., it does so using HTTP, which means Hypertext Transfer Protocol. A protocol is simply any system of rules that explains the procedures to be followed. So, the HTTP protocol defines the manner in which the file that has been requested is requested and subsequently received. As implied, HTTP is a request and response protocol, which means your computer sends a request for some file. Hey, get me that combined CSS file from the previous lecture, for example, and the web server sends back a response. Here's the file you requested, which is then followed by the file itself. The file then does whatever it is it's supposed to do, so long as the browser, who is the middleman in all this, understands the information that has been sent. So why does the number of these requests that our website initiates matter? It matters because it relates to the general optimization rule discussed in the previous lecture. When it comes to speed, less is more. There are, however, some specific optimization rules relating to HTTP requests that should here be mentioned. The first has to do with JavaScript and CSS, how less of those means more for the speed of your website. When a browser begins to analyze or parse a web page, it will, because it has to, stop at JavaScript and CSS files and complete its analysis or parsing of those before it will continue on with analyzing or parsing anything else on the page. Modern browsers can handle many such files at once, or, said differently, in parallel, but that number is limited. Let's have an example. Let's say we have a web page with 100 total HTTP requests, 20 of which are JavaScript and 10 of which are CSS files. That's nearly a third of everything that makes that web page what it is, something the browser has to stop and deal with before your site's visitor will see anything at all appear on their screen. That's not good. Let's now say we've concatenated our JavaScript and CSS into 1 and 2 files respectively, therefore bringing our total number of requests down to 73. There were 100, remember. The browser only having to deal with 1 JavaScript file and 2 CSS files means that the browser can get to the remaining 70 files faster, whatever those files may be. The end result, of course, is a significantly faster loading web page, and that is what we are after. The second specific rule has to do with images, how less of those and smaller versions of them means more speed for your website. Just as it is with JavaScript and CSS files, modern browsers can also process many images at once or in parallel. Nonetheless, the more images you have and the bigger their file size, the bigger the burden on the browser that has to carry them. This, of course, means the bigger the file size of the image and the more of them there are, the slower the load event, the loading of the web page. So, with that, let's talk about image optimization, the primer for which awaits you in the next lecture.